Snugly situated at the southern extremity of Africa lies Cape Town, legislative capital of the Union of South Africa and the oldest European settlement in the southern half of what was formerly called the Dark Continent. Within the city and its suburbs, about 500,000 inhabitants, representing every nationality, color, and creed, are patiently struggling to work out their respective destinies. Forming a dramatic background for this cosmopolitan metropolis stands Table Mountain, one of the world's most famous landmarks, to the summit of which we now ascend in this unique little cable car. From the bottom station to the top, our little spaceship travels about 3,000 feet in 7 minutes, and the ride is one of the outstanding thrills of world travel, for it is replete with breathtaking views of the huge monolith in front of us, as well as the vistas of land and sea behind us. About midway, we pass the descending car, the weight of which helps to pull the car we are in to the summit. For almost a quarter of a century, this unique cable service has operated without a serious accident, and during that time, it has transported over 1 million passengers. On the summit of the mountain, there is a limited amount of wild animal life and a colorful assortment of wildflowers. Although the cable cars only operate in fair weather, sudden mists often enshroud the mountain with an eerie atmosphere, which makes it difficult for photographers to obtain clear pictures of the spectacular views from the summit. In spite of the mist, however, we are enthralled by the grand panorama that opens up so far below us. Curving like a ghostly crescent on the far right is Table Bay, followed by Sea Point, a popular residential resort, and that very conspicuous landmark known as Lion's Head. And now we will start our cable car descent, which is even more thrilling than the upward climb, for it affords a wider range of awe-inspiring vistas. We pass rock formations that seem so close that we could reach our hands out and touch them. And there, far beneath us, is Camps Bay, one of the Cape Province's most beautiful seascapes. In and around this enchanting scenery lies the city of Cape Town, which was founded by Dutch settlers over 300 years ago, merely to provide fresh vegetables and meat for the sailors of the East India Company's ships en route to India. But now let us see what time hath wrought in the garden of the Cape. This is Adderley Street, the main artery of the city, where traffic regulation appears to be a special prerogative of the pedestrians who cross the street at any time or place, even as their ancestors may have done when Cape Town was just a quiet little Dutch settlement. Architectural contrast is one of Cape Town's most interesting features. The older buildings still stand side by side with the newer ones, as if the city fathers had resolved to perpetuate the past as a foundation for the present, as well as an inspiration for the future. Like a silent sentinel guarding the city from all angles, we can see Table Mountain, very much the same as it was when first seen by human eyes. 10 miles from Cape Town stands Groot Constantia, built about 1684 by the governor Van der Stel and named in honor of his wife, Constance. Van der Stel also laid out the nearby vineyards, the grapes from which produce such delicious wine that even in distant Europe, no important dinner was considered complete without it. Aside from the natural flavor of the grapes, old Governor Van der Stel's winemakers artfully twisted the stems of the fruit to arrest the flow of sap until the grapes were turned into the natural sweetness of raisins, thus producing a dessert wine that became world famous in the early part of the 18th century. It is said that when Napoleon Bonaparte was dying at St. Helena, his last words were a request for a glass of Constantia wine. Many of the grape pickers today are descendants of the natives who first helped the Dutch winemakers to develop the vineyards of Constantia, and they have had the advantage of learning their trade at a very early age. In the colorful gardens of Groote Schuur, just outside Cape Town, we are reminded of the important part the early British settlers also played in the development of South Africa. Foremost among them was Cecil John Rhodes, whose sudden rise to fame and fortune, as well as his philanthropies, have all been recorded in history. This picturesque old edifice was formerly used by the East India Company as a storehouse for grain. Rhodes had it converted into its present form and donated it to the Union of South Africa as a residence for its prime ministers. The bronze plaque over the main entrance commemorates the arrival of Jan van Riebeek, who was commissioned by the Dutch East India Company to establish the first white settlement in South Africa. The stars and stripes flying over an American ship in the harbor of Cape Town remotely reminds us that the flag of the Netherlands once flew over New Amsterdam when that Dutch-American settlement was competing with Cape Town for world recognition. That was more than 3 centuries ago, but today the flags of all nations fly over the ships that sail in and out of this historic old harbor. This peaceful seaside resort, known as Muizenberg, is one of the many popular holiday retreats near Cape Town, and it was of particular interest to Cecil Rhodes, who came here in the last days of his life, seeking to restore his failing health. Here, as the poet Kipling wrote, where the white sands of Muizenberg are spun before the gale, Cecil John Rhodes breathed his last. He died a lonely bachelor in this humble little cottage in 1902 at the age of 49 years. His immortal last words were, "So much to do, so little done." The Rhodes Memorial at Cape Town commemorates the memory of South Africa's great pioneer and benefactor. And in conclusion, we can think of no more fitting words to his memory than the ones that are inscribed on this impressive memorial. His immense and brooding spirit still shall quicken and control. Living, he was the land, and dead, his soul shall be her soul. And it is with this thought that we now conclude our visit to Cape Town, mother city of South Africa.